Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Imagine this. Every fiat currency in history, from Weimar Germany to Zimbabwe, has succumbed to the slow, relentless poison of debasement. You hold a piece of paper marked dollar, euro, rupee, and day by day, invisible taxes erode its power. That is the great crime of our age. The quiet theft of value under the guise of monetary management. Today I stand before you not to entertain you, but to awaken you, to show you that the war for your wealth is real, and that in the footsteps of giants, a new frontier has opened. The title of our discussion, The Debasement Trade, and the central question, did Jpmorgan just issue a battle cry for $500,000 Bitcoin? This is not speculation. This is a turning point, a moment when the old guards begin to whisper, when the walls of consensus crack. And if you listen closely, you can hear the footsteps of history. Every generation faces a silent enemy, one that doesn't march with armies or roar in speeches, but seeps quietly into every corner of our lives. It is the erosion of value, the slow decay of purchasing power, the invisible theft of time. This is monetary debasement, the oldest trick of empires, the quiet assassin of civilizations. It begins not with malice, but with arrogance. The belief that you can print wealth out of thin air, that value can be conjured with ink and debt rather than created with innovation and discipline. Look around. Every government in the modern world is trapped in the same cycle: spend more than you earn, borrow to survive, print to pay. The illusion of prosperity is maintained through numbers on a screen, but beneath that illusion lies decay. A dollar from 1971 buys only a fraction of what it did then. A family that once thrived on a single income now struggles on two. The energy, the productivity, the creativity of humanity is being siphoned away through the hidden tax of inflation. People say inflation is a natural part of the system. That's the great lie. Inflation isn't nature, it's policy. It's the deliberate decision to dilute the currency so the system can survive another day. And when money loses its integrity, everything built upon it begins to crumble. Contracts lose meaning, savings lose purpose, work loses reward. You spend a lifetime building value only to see it melt in the hands of those who produce nothing but debt. This is the heart of the conflict. You cannot store your life's energy in something that is designed to decay. If money is a battery that stores the product of your time, then fiat currency is a leaking battery, draining your energy day after day. The more you save, the more you lose. You're not being rewarded for prudence. You're being punished for it. The system demands consumption, demands risk, demands that you run faster just to stay in the same place. And all the while, the few who control the levers of money grow more powerful, while the many drift further into dependency. Throughout history, great empires have fallen not because of invasion, but because they debased their money. Rome clipped its coins. France printed asanas until they were worthless. The British pound lost 99% of its value over centuries. The pattern is always the same. When governments lose fiscal discipline, they resort to the printing press. The currency weakens. The people lose trust. And trust, once gone, never returns easily. We live in that same story today, only this time it's global. Every major central bank is engaged in competitive devaluation, each trying to outprint the other to sustain growth that doesn't exist. The result is a race to the bottom, a global casino where your savings are the chips and the house always wins. They call it quantitative easing, but it's just sophisticated theft wearing a suit. And here's the tragedy. Most people don't even realize it's happening. They blame rising prices, not falling currency. They think the problem is the store, not the system. They're told wages are going up, but no one mentions that the real value of those wages is evaporating faster than they can earn it. The numbers rise, but the substance declines. It's a grand illusion, a mirage of prosperity built on the sands of credit expansion. What we're witnessing isn't an economic cycle, it's a moral collapse. Sound money is a moral foundation. It rewards work, honesty, and discipline. Debased money rewards speculation, corruption, and short-term thinking. When the medium of exchange itself is broken, society follows. People lose faith in saving and planning in the future. They chase easy returns, gamble on short-term gains, and call it success. But underneath, they know something is wrong. They can feel the erosion of meaning, the decay of trust, and yet history offers a pattern of hope. Every era of debasement gives birth to a new form of sound money. Gold rose from the ashes of collapsed currencies for millennia. But today, in the digital age, the new standard isn't metal, it's math. Humanity is awakening to a new store of value, one that cannot be printed, cannot be manipulated, and cannot be corrupted. The debasement trade is the defining story of our time. It is the quiet battle between truth and illusion, between scarcity and excess, between the creators of real value and the architects of debt. You can ignore it for a while, you can deny it for a while, but you cannot escape it forever. Eventually, every saver, every builder, every dreamer must decide, do you trust in the paper promises of those who devalue your future, or do you choose something incorruptible, something that restores the link between work, value, and freedom? The world is waking up. The printing presses can no longer hide the truth. We are standing at the edge of a great transformation, and the first step is seeing the system for what it truly is, not a machine for prosperity, but a mechanism of quiet theft. The antidote begins with awareness. The revolution begins with sound money. The future belongs to those who refuse to let their time be debased. There comes a moment in every great financial revolution when the establishment stops laughing and starts listening. For years, they dismissed this movement as a fad, a fantasy, a fool's gold for dreamers and idealists. They called it volatile, dangerous, even delusional. But now the whispers have turned into conversations behind closed doors, and those same institutions that once mocked the future are beginning to align with it. The world's largest banks, the architects of the fiat system itself, are quietly acknowledging what they can no longer ignore. The foundation of money is shifting beneath their feet. When a name like Jpmorgan starts to talk about a $500,000 valuation, it's not just an opinion, it's a signal. It's a tremor from deep inside the old empire, a sign that even the masters of the legacy system can feel the tectonic plates moving. For decades, they've lived off the privilege of proximity to the money printer. They created credit-shaped markets, influenced governments. But even they are now realizing that the rules of the game are changing, and this time they're not the ones writing them. You have to understand what this really means. JP Morgan isn't a small hedge fund looking for a headline. It's the cornerstone of traditional finance, a fortress built on the fiat standard. When that fortress begins to look toward an asset born from mathematical scarcity, it's not out of curiosity, it's out of necessity. They can see what's coming. They can read the balance sheets of nations. They understand that debt has outgrown productivity, that currencies are losing credibility faster than they can be defended. And for the first time in modern history, there's an exit, a bridge from a melting world of paper promises to a new world built on digital truth. This isn't about price targets, it's about paradigm shifts. A $500,000 call isn't a prediction, it's an admission. It's the moment the most powerful institutions on earth begin to confess in their own coded language that the old model of perpetual debt and endless liquidity is no longer sustainable. They won't say it outright, not yet. They'll couch it in cautious analysis and probabilistic forecasts. But beneath that careful phrasing is fear. They know the machine is running out of fuel. For years, they benefited from the asymmetry. They borrowed cheap. They lent expensive. They thrived on the spread. They were the middlemen of the monetary world, extracting value without creating it. But the rise of a trustless system changes that dynamic entirely. In a world where value can move at the speed of light, secured by code instead of committees, the middlemen lose their leverage. Power shifts from institutions to individuals. And that is why this signal matters so deeply. Because it's not just a call for $500,000 Bitcoin, it's a quiet acknowledgement that power is leaving the boardroom and flowing back to the people. There's something poetic about it. And the same forces that tried to suppress this technology are now being drawn to it. The same analysts who once called it a bubble are now modeling it as a reserve asset. The same institutions that thrived on opacity are now investing in transparency. It's not because they've changed their philosophy, it's because reality has changed theirs. In the face of truth, even the mighty must adapt. Think of this as the first domino. Today it's Jpmorgan issuing the signal. Tomorrow it's BlackRock, Fidelity, the sovereign funds of the world. Once one institution moves, others must follow. That's the nature of capital. It seeks the path of least resistance and greatest preservation. And once that path leads toward digital scarcity, no amount of denial can reverse the flow. This is how revolutions begin. Quietly, then suddenly, for a decade, visionaries and builders laid the foundation. They endured ridicule, regulation, and resistance. But now, the very institutions that dismissed them are rushing to participate before it's too late. They are not leading this revolution. They are reacting to it. They are passengers on a train they once tried to derail. And this moment, this signal, is your confirmation that the shift is real. When the largest custodians of fiat start to hedge against their own system, you know the inflection point has arrived. It means they no longer believe in the perpetual stability of their own creation. It means they see what's coming. A monetary order where truth outpaces trust, where scarcity beats credit, where ownership returns to the individual. They will try to co-opt it, to regulate it, to reshape it into something that serves their interests, but they can't stop the truth encoded in its DNA. Because for the first time, money doesn't need permission. It doesn't need a banker's blessing. It doesn't require a government guarantee. It simply exists, incorruptible, immutable, inevitable. So when you hear them speak of 500,000, don't just think of price. Think of surrender. Think of recognition. Think of the moment the walls begin to crumble from within. The institutions are not guiding this movement. They are acknowledging its dominance. The torch is passing, and for the first time in history, it is passing from the few to the many, from fiat to freedom. Every great transformation in history has been defined by a moment of asymmetry, a point where the reward for courage vastly outweighs the risk of inaction. Most people never recognize it when it comes. They're too focused on the noise, the fear, the volatility. But for those who see clearly, who understand the structure of the game, that moment is everything. We are living in that moment right now. The asymmetry has never been greater, the opportunity never clearer, and the call to conviction never louder. Think about what it means to live in a time when the entire global financial system is built on promises that can't be kept. Every dollar, every bond, every pension, every savings account, all of it is a claim on a future that is already mortgaged. Governments print, banks lend, and the illusion of prosperity continues. But deep down, everyone knows the math doesn't work. When debt grows faster than productivity, collapse is not a possibility, it's an inevitability. Yet, most people will do nothing. They'll keep their wealth in melting assets, they'll believe in the same broken narratives, and they'll tell themselves it's too risky to change. That's the tragedy of the crowd, comfort in consensus, even when the consensus is wrong. But here's the truth. Real risk isn't in owning something volatile, it's in clinging to something guaranteed to fail. The system we've built around fiat money is designed to decay. The more they print, the more purchasing power dies. The more you save, the more you lose. The asymmetry lies in the fact that the downside of opting out is limited, but the upside of doing so is generational. If you're right, you preserve your wealth, your energy, your time. If you're wrong, you still own an asset with a fixed supply, global demand, and technological certainty. That's not speculation, that's mathematical logic. Conviction is what separates those who act from those who regret. It's easy to be confident when the crowd agrees with you, but true conviction is forged in the fire of doubt. When everyone tells you you're wrong, when the headlines scream panic, when prices fall and fear rises, that's when you discover what you actually believe. The people who changed the world never waited for permission. They didn't ask the system to bless their vision. They acted because they understood that waiting for certainty means waiting forever. This moment demands that same kind of courage. You don't need to time the market. You need to understand the mission. This isn't about short-term profit. It's about long-term survival. You're not making a trade. You're making a choice between two systems, one decaying, one ascending, between a world built on promises and a world built on proof, between inflation and integrity. Every time there's a paradigm shift, the majority stands on the wrong side of it. They laughed at the early adopters of electricity, of the internet, of mobile computing. But those who had the courage to see the world not as it was, but as it could be, reaped rewards beyond imagination. The same dynamic is unfolding again, only this time the stakes are higher because this isn't just a technological shift, it's a monetary one. It's the redefinition of value itself. The asymmetry is staggering. On one side, you have a system guaranteed to debase your wealth, managed by institutions drowning in debt. On the other, you have a finite network, secured by the most powerful computing infrastructure in human history, adopted by millions, recognized globally, and still in its infancy. The risk isn't in buying, the risk is in waiting. Because every day you hesitate, your money bleeds value while the network strengthens. Conviction means seeing past the noise. It means ignoring the daily fluctuations and focusing on the fundamental truth. Scarcity in a world of excess is priceless. You don't need to convince anyone else. The market will do that in time. What you need is patience, discipline, and the courage to act when others freeze. There will be fear. There will be volatility. There will be those who call it madness. But remember, every great fortune, every great innovation, every great liberation began as heresy. Those who waited for permission never built empires. They worked for those who did. The future doesn't belong to the timid. It belongs to those who can look at the chaos and see clarity, who understand that volatility is the price of opportunity, and who realize that the greatest risk in life is not losing, it's never trying. The asymmetry is staring us in the face, limited downside, infinite upside. The only question that remains is whether you have the conviction to act before the world catches up. When the storm clears and the next generation looks back, they'll see this moment for what it was, the pivot point between two eras. Some will say it was obvious in hindsight, but hindsight is for historians. Conviction is for builders. The time to act is not when the crowd arrives, it's when the signal first appears, and that signal is flashing now. At the core of every human struggle lies a single question: who owns your time? Every hour you work, every idea you create, every dream you chase is a fragment of your life energy, the most precious thing you will ever possess. Money is simply the ledger that records that energy. But when that ledger is corrupted, when your life's work can be diluted with the push of a button, what you truly lose is not wealth, it's freedom. The tragedy of our age is that billions of people have been conditioned to trade their sovereignty for convenience, to surrender control over their money, their future, and their truth to institutions that no longer serve them. Freedom is not granted by governments or guaranteed by law. It is earned through ownership. You are not free when someone else can confiscate your property, censor your voice, or erode your savings through hidden inflation. You are only free when your value is stored in something beyond their reach, something that no ruler can mint, no banker can freeze, and no politician can debase. True sovereignty begins the moment you decide to hold your wealth in a form that is immune to corruption. That decision is not just financial, it is moral. It is a declaration that you refuse to be a passive subject in a system designed to drain your energy while pretending to protect you. We live in an era where truth itself has become negotiable. Institutions rewrite definitions, media shapes narratives, and those who control information control perception. But mathematics is not political. Code does not lie. In a world of manipulated truths, a system based on immutable rules becomes a sanctuary of honesty. That's why this movement is not merely about money. It's about truth in an age of deceit. When you hold something that is verifiable, incorruptible, and transparent, you are holding a piece of reality in a world built on illusion. This is why the moral dimension matters, because debasement isn't just an economic phenomenon, it's a moral failure. It punishes the productive and rewards the reckless. It steals from the poor to bail out the powerful. It incentivizes debt over discipline, speculation over savings, and deception over diligence. When a system is built on lies, it produces more liars. When money loses integrity, society follows, corruption becomes normal, trust becomes fragile, and cynicism becomes culture. We are watching that decay unfold in real time. And yet, amidst this moral erosion, a new ethos is emerging, one that values transparency, accountability, and self-custody. It's a return to first principles that wealth should be earned, not printed, that value should be preserved, not diluted, that truth should be objective, not negotiable. In this new paradigm, you don't need permission to own your future. You don't need a bank to validate your worth. You don't need a government to define your freedom. The network itself becomes the guarantor of truth, the protector of property, and the foundation of trust. Sovereignty is not isolation, it's responsibility. When you take control of your wealth, you also take responsibility for your actions, your security, your understanding. It demands education, discipline, and patience. That's why so few achieve it, because real freedom requires effort. But it's the kind of effort that transforms a person. It replaces dependence with confidence, fear with knowledge, and submission with self-respect. You begin to see the world differently, not as a maze of systems to obey, but as a landscape of possibilities to navigate. And make no mistake, this is not just a financial revolution, it's a spiritual awakening. It's the rediscovery of a simple truth. that value should reflect reality, not illusion, that trust should be earned, not imposed, that human beings deserve to own the product of their labor without interference or manipulation. When money becomes truth, civilization flourishes. When it becomes a tool of control, humanity withers. Every empire that has fallen did so because it lost its moral foundation long before it lost its armies. When leaders believe they can print prosperity, they destroy the link between effort and reward, and that is the beginning of tyranny. But when individuals reclaim control over their value, the balance of power shifts back to where it belongs, to the people who create, who build, who believe. We are living through that shift right now. It is not just technological or economic. It is deeply philosophical. It's about reclaiming what it means to be free in the digital age, to own your identity, your data, your labor, and your money, to live by truth instead of illusion, to measure wealth not by what you consume, but by what you can preserve. This is the quiet revolution of our time, the rebirth of sovereignty in an age of submission. It's not happening through violence or politics, but through voluntary choice, one mind at a time. The tools are here, the truth is visible, and the path is clear. The question that remains is whether we have the courage to walk it, to choose freedom over comfort, sovereignty over dependency, and truth over lies. Because in the end, freedom is not something you ask for. It's something you take, and once taken, it becomes the foundation of everything worth building.